Hello everybody and welcome to this Train Sim World 4 suggestion. I'm hesitant to call it a route suggestion because it isn't one. Today we are looking at the Intercity 225 for the East Coast Main Line notionally. East Coast Main Line route from Peterborough to Doncaster. I've already forgotten what the routes are. They're too insignificant. Anyway, so Intercity 225, this was suggested by someone in my Discord server. So if you have a route or a locomotive that you want me to have a look at, and if I think it's, worth more than 5 cents, then I'll make a video of it. The name has escaped me of the person who suggested it. It'll be on screen or in the description or something. Yeah, if you want to suggest anything, make sure you do that on my Discord server. Link is in the description as always. Anyway, we'll get straight in. Before I start, actually, one thing is this is quite possibly already in the production line because it would sell like hotcakes, and Dovetail know that. And if they come out with the Loco DLC and charge us all for it, then they get extra money. Whereas if they just bundled it in with the original route, then they'd lose money. So I suspect this is already coming anyway, but nonetheless, we'll have a look. So what do I reckon this should include? Well, a Class 91 locomotive, the Electra, Mark IV coaches and the Mark IV DVT, and in both the ex-Virgin Trains East Coast and the LNER British Rail Intercity-esque livery. The BR LNER livery is what you can see in the background. It's a fantastic livery. I do love the oxblood colour with the, quite strong links back to old British Rail, whilst retaining a pretty modern feel. And although these units somewhat have numbered days, they're nicer than the HSTs, let's be real. They look the part in this livery. Like the Intercity Swallow livery looked good. This looks fucking fantastic. I was never a fan of the VTEC livery. I thought that was a bit of a piss-weak effort. To be honest, I haven't really been a fan of any of the East Coast liveries, except potentially the Azuma livery. I don't like the Azumas themselves, but their livery isn't bad. This one is fucking fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Possibly my favourite livery of any train in the world at the moment. Anyway, so general information on the trains. This is the old ex-VTEC livery if you were interested. So these trains are formed of a Class 91, which is the locomotive that's doing all of the work, and that is always at one end of the train. The trains are more or less semi-permanently coupled. I mean, they can be shunted around, but it's not like a normal diesel-hauled train where you get to the end of the line and you run it around and you stick it. Most of you already know that, don't know why I'm explaining this. So you've got Mark IV coaches then sandwiched in between that Class 91 and the Mark IV DVT, DVT being driving van trailer, unpowered driving position. They look reasonably similar to the 91s. This is the DVT, so it doesn't have a pantograph, doesn't have any passenger seating because of rules at the time that said you can't have passengers in a rear vehicle that's going over 100 miles an hour or so, or like in the end vehicle of a high-speed train. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's the formation. They do 125 miles an hour, so from a performance point of view, they're really not that much different to the 801s that we're getting with this route. They accelerate slightly slower because they've got only 4 powered axles as opposed to a whole train's worth of power. But they are still powerful locomotives, putting out 6,300 horsepower, which is like more powerful than most of the American locomotives, and they're always Dovetail always sell them as super powerful, you can move mountains with these locomotives, and here's the quiet little Electra putting out 6,000 horsepower. Yeah, that's general information in case you didn't know. The current usage of these trains, so LNER have 12 Class 91s, 73 Mark IVs and 9 Mark IV DVTs, and they form 8 trains with a few spares or a few still in the depot undergoing maintenance. So the fleet availability is not fantastic, but they're old trains, so it's sort of typical for that age. And they have been recently refurbished inside and outside, and part of that refurbishment was, of course, sticking them into this new livery, which again looks amazing. But they run on all of the electrified LNER routes. They do not run on any of the unelectrified routes. But to be honest, well, no, I reckon if this was a thing, and it probably will be, Dovetail would almost certainly only run these on the electric routes. But the 801s, I think they'd be more lenient to run to put the 801s on services that would normally only be operated by 800s. Because you get more services, and it's not a huge difference. They'd be running on the section that they're giving us, they'd be running on electric power anyway, so I don't think it's a huge deal. But these ones, I reckon they'd be on the electric services. But they don't run many trains a day now. We know this is a modern route, and they are still in service, of course, but they don't run many trains a day, because there are only 8 of them, as opposed to the 50 or 100 Zoomers that they have. So yeah, that's the usage of the 91s and some extra things. So these are like extra things they could be layered into. And by the way, these are very funky locos because they have a cab at both ends, but the blunt end cab looks ridiculous. It looks like a fucking face. It looks terrifying. In Train Sim Classic, I always loved just sticking the loco blunt end first and having a whiz around in that light loco. Yeah, in light loco, these things accelerate like a stabbed rat. They just fuck off. They're super powerful. And to be fair, that is probably some of TS Classic's physics. And I would imagine that if you were to do this in Simigraph, you'd get a fuck ton of wheel slip. But yeah, anyway, I reckon this would be a very, well, I don't reckon, this would come into any kind of ECML South community route made in the editor. And, in editor stuff, it could be stuck into lots of other liveries, like GNER, East Coast, VTech, National Express, that kind of stuff. It could also be used down the track, pun intended, as AI in Edinburgh. I know we're not going to get the 801 as static AI in Edinburgh. Not Edinburgh, Glasgow. What am I on about? No, yes, Edinburgh. Yeah. In Edinburgh, which is a shame, and it's, Dovetail being lazy. Well, it's not Dovetail, it's, that would be Rivet, that's the one. So hopefully Rivet can get their game together and stick those 801s on. But if this released, I reckon, slap them on Edinburgh to Glasgow at Waverley. Fantastic, 3 points. And also AI at St Pancras on the bit just before you go into the HS1 tunnels on the throat towards St Pancras when you go over the ECML, where there are some 700s, I believe, and potentially is some 801s. Or no, there aren't any 801s. No, I remember going on a huge spiel about that. There used to be some freight trains, some like engineering trains, but they could be laid over there as well. And there are also some scrap moves, potentially with, I don't know, Class 37 or something, moving around other routes. I don't know where they were scrapped, I don't know where they were stored. I should imagine some ended up in Derby, because I know some of the Mark IVs ended up with Transport for Wales after an overhaul, so, potentially there's some scope for, like the HST moves on Birmingham Cross City, something like that. So yeah, that is about everything for the Intercity 225. If you've enjoyed, please do subscribe. If you haven't enjoyed, let me know why. If you want me to make a video on something, or if you want me to look at making a video on something, do let me know on my Discord server again, and I'll see you next time. Have a fantastic day. Goodbye.